There are two types of extreme people in the personal finance world. The ones who optimize every dollar of spending out of their life, feel virtuous about it, and frame cutting expenses at all costs as the entire game. And the ones who spend money on everything, call it self-investment or enjoyment of life, and wonder why they're still broke at 52. Both of them are losing. Because here's what the most financially successful people I've ever studied actually do. They're ruthlessly cheap about most things, and then they spend deliberately, strategically, almost aggressively on a very specific category of purchases. Things that return more than they cost. Things that reduce risk that would otherwise wipe out years of progress. Things that compound. Things that make every other financial decision easier to execute correctly. Most personal finance content gives you a list of things to cut. Skip the latte, cancel the subscription, pack your lunch. And look, that advice isn't wrong, it's just incomplete. Because the real game isn't minimizing all spending. It's understanding which spending makes you richer and which spending makes you poorer. And if you've ever met someone who earns less than you but sleeps better, has more options, and seems to be quietly building something you can't quite put your finger on, I promise you, they've figured out this distinction. You just can't see it from the outside because the right purchases rarely announce themselves. My name is Mike, and today we're doing something I almost never do on this channel. We're talking about what's worth spending money on. Not cutting, spending. 10 things that will return more than they cost. Some of them financially, some of them in ways that make the financial stuff possible. Because that distinction matters, and the order matters. By the end of this, your budget isn't going to look smaller, it's going to look smarter. Hit the subscribe button so you don't miss what comes next. Let's get into it. Number 1 is term life insurance. I need to start here because this is the one that costs the most people the most money when they get it wrong, and the consequences show up at the absolute worst possible moment. About 40% of American adults have no life insurance at all. Zero. And a meaningful chunk of the ones who do bought the wrong kind. Whole life, universal life, variable life, products that get sold in living rooms by someone who cares significantly more about their commission than about your family's actual financial future. The industry loves these products because the margins are extraordinary. For you, they are one of the most expensive ways to be financially responsible while not actually being financially responsible. Here's the math, and I want you to hear it clearly. A healthy 30-year-old can buy a 20-year term life policy for roughly $25 to $30 a month. $1 million in coverage for less than you spend on streaming services, and possibly less than you spend on coffee. If you pass away during the term, your family gets $1 million. If you don't, which is both the more statistically likely outcome and the one you're rooting for, you've paid for genuine peace of mind while your real assets grew in the background. That is the play. Not a whole life policy at $400 a month that grows at 2%, while your agent earns a fat first-year commission and refers to it as a wealth-building tool. It is not a wealth-building tool. It is a commission vehicle. Term life is one of the cheapest legitimate financial safeguards available to a normal person in this country. If you have anyone depending on your income, you already needed this yesterday. Because term insurance premiums are so affordable, you can buy a policy for about the same price as a meal at a mid-tier restaurant. Then, you can invest the difference, all the money you are saving by not purchasing an expensive whole life policy. This way, you get to build your own wealth. You get all of the compounding and interest from the S&P 500 without any fees or administrative costs. You get to leave your family a hefty investment portfolio when you do go, hopefully many decades after the policy expires. But you are also guaranteeing that if you are unlucky and it happens within the policy term, your loved ones have a strong safety net.
Number 2 is a CPA, not tax software, an actual certified public accountant. I know the counter-argument. TurboTax is $89 and your situation is simple. Maybe that's true. If you're a single W-2 employee with no investments, no side income, and nothing complex happening financially, software probably handles you fine. But the moment your financial life gets even slightly complicated, and if you're actively trying to build wealth, it will, a good CPA pays for itself multiple times over every single year without breaking a sweat. Here's what I mean. The average CPA charges between $300 and $800 for a return with some complexity. That sounds like a lot, until they identify $4,000 in deductions you didn't know existed, or until they restructure how you're being compensated through an S-Corp election that saves you $8,000 in self-employment taxes annually going forward, or until they catch a mistake you've been quietly making for 3 straight years that has been costing you money every single April without you knowing it. One good CPA conversation can restructure your tax situation in ways that compound for the rest of your working life. That is not an expense. That's a return on investment. The people who complain about CPA fees are often the same people paying full freight to the IRS on income they legally didn't know taxes on. The IRS has never called anyone to say you left money on the table and here's how to get it back. Your CPA will. Number 3 is disability insurance, and this is the most consistently skipped protection product in America, and it's not close. Most people have never seriously thought about it. Most people who have thought about it decided they'd figure it out at some point later. Later never comes. And the people who actually need it tend to need it in a way they never saw coming. Here is the number that should stop you. According to the Social Security Administration, roughly 1 in 4 20-year-olds will experience a disabling injury or illness before they reach retirement age. 1 in 4. That's not a remote tail risk. That's a 25% chance that your income stops, not because you quit, not because the company laid you off, but because your body or your mind stops functioning the way it needs to. And when that happens, your mortgage doesn't take a pause. Your car payment doesn't show any sympathy. Your groceries do not get cheaper. Everything that requires income keeps requiring it, and the income disappears. Short-term and long-term disability insurance exists specifically to bridge that gap. A policy that covers 60 to 70% of your income if you can't work typically runs $150 to $250 a month, depending on your occupation and income level. Most people spend more than that on things they couldn't name by Thursday morning. This one is completely worth it, because the alternative is finding out what happens to a family when the primary earner can't earn and there's nothing underneath to break the fall. Number 4 is preventive health care. And I'm not just talking about getting your annual physical, though yes, that too. I'm talking about the dental cleanings every 6 months, the eye exams, the dermatology visits to check what you've been telling yourself is probably nothing, the mental health appointments before you're in crisis, the colonoscopy at 45, because the statistics on colon cancer caught early versus caught late are genuinely not the same conversation. All of it. The entire system of maintenance that most Americans either skip because of cost, skip because of inconvenience, or skip because of the very human tendency to assume that if nothing visibly hurts, nothing is wrong. Here's what the economics of skipping preventive care actually look like. An early-stage cancer detection that costs $200 to catch becomes $300,000 or more to treat if it surfaces at stage 4 2 years later. An unmanaged blood pressure problem that costs $30 a month in medication costs potentially more than $1 million over a lifetime in strokes, hospital stays, cardiac events, and long-term care. Your body is the engine that generates every dollar you will ever earn. Treating it like a machine that doesn't need maintenance until something breaks catastrophically is a financial strategy. It just happens to be a catastrophically bad one. Spend money here. Consistently, proactively, before you have a reason to wish you had. Number 5 is your day-to-day health, not as a lifestyle choice, as financial infrastructure. A gym membership, regular checkups, the prescriptions you've been meaning to fill. Therapy, physical or mental, whatever your situation actually requires. Decent food that isn't engineered to make you eat more of it. Walking shoes that don't destroy your joints after a year of daily use. These aren't luxuries. They're maintenance on the only piece of equipment you cannot replace. Here's what kills me about how most people think about this. They will spend $700, $800, sometimes over $1,000 a month on a car payment and never lose a night of sleep over it. But then they stand in a grocery store and genuinely debate whether they can afford to spend $4 more on something with actual nutritional value.
The car is a depreciating asset. It gets them to work. Their health is what determines whether they can function when they get there. And somehow, the car keeps winning this argument. Your energy, your focus, your ability to show up consistently and think clearly under pressure, all of it runs on your health. When that starts to degrade, everything else in your life gets harder. Not in some abstract way, measurably harder. You can outspend almost any problem. You cannot outwork a body you've been quietly neglecting for a decade. I pay for better food. I go to the doctor before something is wrong. And I made that decision because at some point it becomes obvious that this isn't a wellness choice, it's an economic one. The cost of maintaining your health is almost always lower than the cost of fixing it after you've ignored it long enough. If you can justify $800 a month for a car that impresses strangers at red lights, you can justify spending money on the thing that determines whether you have the capacity to earn that $800 in the first place.
Number 6 is a good mattress. I understand how this sounds on a finance channel, but stay with me because the data actually justifies this one more than most people expect. The average person spends roughly 1/3 of their life unconscious. On a surface you probably purchased based on price or whatever happened to be on sale during the mattress store's perpetual going out of business event. Sleep deprivation is documented by researchers at the University of Pennsylvania and multiple other institutions to impair cognitive performance at levels comparable to being legally drunk. And cognitive performance is exactly what you're monetizing every day, whether you work for someone else or you work for yourself. Research has also found that poor sleep directly increases financial risk-taking, reduces impulse control, and degrades the quality of decisions in ways that people cannot accurately perceive in themselves while it's happening. Every truly bad financial decision you've ever made was probably made in a state of inadequate rest. The mattress industry has successfully convinced people to spend money on mattresses for status and aesthetics. I'm suggesting you spend money on one for performance. A quality mattress in the $1,000 to $2,000 range that you sleep on for 10 years costs you somewhere between 30 and 50 cents per night. There is almost no category of spending that more directly affects everything else you do for less money per use than this one. Number 7 is skills that increase your income directly and measurably. This is the one that scales unlike anything else on this list, and most people treat it like an afterthought they'll get to when work slows down. Work never slows down. A $300 certification course that adds $15,000 to your annual salary is a 5,000% return. Not over 30 years of compounding. Immediately, in year 1. A $50 a month learning subscription that results in a promotion 18 months later compounds through every job negotiation, every offer letter, every raise conversation for the rest of your career. And here's the part that kills me. The average employer offers $2,500 to $5,000 in annual education benefits. A significant percentage of employees let that money expire untouched every year. They are handing back a grant because filling out the paperwork is inconvenient. Skills are the one investment that cannot depreciate the same way other assets can. The market cannot take them. A recession cannot erase them. They travel with you. They compound with experience. And in a labor market that rewards specialization, the distance between the person who invests in their skill set and the person who doesn't grows wider every single year. Spend money here, specifically, intentionally, and consistently. Number 8 is estate planning. This is the one that causes people to change the subject at Thanksgiving, and I understand why. Nobody wants to sit with the paperwork that assumes they're going to pass away. But here's what not having it actually costs. About $60 billion per year gets consumed by the probate process in the United States alone. Legal fees, court costs, delays that stretch for years. Probate is what takes over your estate when the right documents aren't in place. It's public,
It's slow, it's expensive, and it's entirely avoidable. A basic estate plan, a properly structured will, a trust, powers of attorney, healthcare directives, runs $1,500 to $5,000 depending on complexity. One time. It protects decades of accumulated assets from a court system that is not designed with your family's interests in mind. It keeps your spouse, your kids, and the people you built everything for out of a process that costs them money they should have kept. If you have children, if you own property, if you have a retirement account with any balance worth protecting, you already need this. People who don't have it aren't making a financial decision. They're making a delay that the people they love the most will eventually pay for. Number 9 is your professional network. And I know this sounds like the kind of abstract advice that ends up on motivational posters, but there are real numbers behind it. LinkedIn research consistently finds that 85% of jobs are filled through networking rather than formal applications. Your professional network is a financial asset, one that appreciates the more you invest in it and quietly depreciates if you neglect it for long enough. The $400 conference you skip is the same conference where someone hands you a business card that eventually leads to a conversation that leads to an offer that pays $30,000 more than what you're making now. The industry dinner you skip because you're in a spending-cutting phase is where relationships get built over the course of a few years that quietly open doors you didn't know existed. I'm not saying attend everything. I'm not saying overspend on nights out in the name of networking. I'm saying treat your professional relationships the way you treat your investment accounts. Consistent small contributions, long time horizon, compounding returns that accelerate over time. Because the math on investing in the right people and the right rooms is not linear. It is exponential. One conversation with the right person at the right moment has redirected more careers than any resume ever dropped into an applicant tracking system. Number 10 is time. This one is the hardest to quantify and possibly the most important thing on this entire list. There is a specific moment in every financial journey where the constraint stops being money and starts being hours. When you get there, and if you're building wealth deliberately, you will get there, the question changes. It stops being how do I earn more and becomes how do I protect the hours I have? That looks like different things for different people at different income levels. Maybe it's paying someone to handle specific tasks that consume your most productive hours. Maybe it's paying slightly more to live closer to work and buying back 90 minutes a day you were spending in a car you can't use for anything else. Maybe it's the grocery order that costs $15 extra and returns 2 hours you spend on the thing that actually moves your financial situation forward. The people who get this wrong think buying back time is a luxury reserved for wealthy people. The people who get this right understand that buying back time is how you become one of the wealthy people. Your hours are finite. Your earnings potential within those hours is not. Anything that improves the ratio of productive hours to evaporated ones is paying for itself in a way that doesn't show up on any monthly budget but absolutely shows up in your net worth at the end of a decade. Here's what ties all 10 of these together. Every single one of them generates a return greater than its cost. Whether that return is measured in dollars, in risk eliminated, in time recovered, or in the mental clarity that makes every other good decision possible. None of them are flashy. None of them are going to get you likes on social media. You're not going to post about your disability insurance or your estate plan or the 60 minutes you spent on a colonoscopy. But 20 years from now, the people who made these specific spending choices are going to look completely different from the ones who didn't. Not because they earned more, because they spent differently. They understood that the goal was never to spend as little as possible. The goal was to spend on the right things and ruthlessly eliminate the rest. That's not deprivation. That is the entire game. If this changed how you think about your budget, hit the like button and drop a comment below with the one thing on this list you're going to handle first.
I read every single one. I'll see you in the next one.